If you've ever wondered why people rave about Cinestill 50D, especially when using it on bright sunny days, then this is the video for you. We're going to be running through everything that the community thinks about this unique film. Quick one before we get started, if you like film photography and want to see more videos like this one, film reviews, tips and tricks, that kind of thing, then please do make sure you're subscribed to our channel and notifications are turned on. Thank you so much. Cinestill 50D is the second Cinestill film that we have featured in the Wonderbox after 800T last year. Now the difference you can already hear in the name versus 800T. 50D, this is an ISO 50 film, colour balanced for daylight, versus 800T, ISO 800, balanced for T tungsten, indoor light. Now what does this mean? Well, this, like 800T, is originally a movie film stock that has been adapted for stills photography. It has had remjet removed, we'll come back to that in a minute, just like 800T, and a few other adaptations to make it perfect for just popping in your camera and then developing in C41 or Cinestill's CS2 chemistry. It is an unbelievable emulsion, really high quality, incredibly fine detail, tiny grain, absolutely pin sharp in terms of the quality and the detail that you can get out of this emulsion. And that comes from its origins as a movie stock, one of the best movie stocks in the entire business, and then low ISO, which means that the chemistry can retain a huge amount of detail without needing large grain structures to capture more light. Let's talk about the D for daylight, because there is a caveat to this quality. Before, when we've talked about, say, Kodak's professional range for still photographers like Portra, like Ektar, we've talked about that the chemistry brings brilliant colours but also flexibility. It brings you things that mean that you can use it in different situations. 50D is not quite like that. And again, the reason is back to its origins as a movie film. If you remember the colour spectrum from our Rolly infrared movie a few weeks ago, you'll remember that the colour spectrum goes from red at one side near infrared, which is why we're talking about it, all the way through orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And they correspond to different colour temperatures, and they correspond to different lights that we will have in our everyday life. Tungsten is quite a red light. Daylight is almost smack bang in the middle, and it is actually quite blue. This means that if you shoot this film in bright daylight, this film will give you exactly what you see. In fact, in fairness, it will do that across the range, but it's particularly important to think about it in daylight first. If colours are gorgeous, if colours are bright, if there is a lot of things going on in the scene with a lot of detail, this film will capture it, render it brilliantly. You will get back the scans and be absolutely blown away. If you take this film into shadow, or if you shoot it on an overcast day, you will be disappointed, because this film will look at that and it will render colours that are muted, that are dull, that are frankly a bit disappointing, and also with a slight green tint. That is because that is what the film is seeing. That is the reality of the scene, and this film is all about accurate reproduction of the scene in front of you. If you take it indoors, it will show you that the colours are quite red, quite orange, because they are. Now our eyes adapt to that. Lots of colour negative film frankly has latitude in the colour reproduction and you wouldn't really notice it, but this film is designed to be accurate with what it sees. So if you show it a dull lighting situation, it will give you a dull photo. If you show it a red light, it will show you red. But if you shoot it in daylight, in bright sunny daylight, it will give you absolute perfection, along with the fine detail, the minimal grain, everything else that you know. Now, is this particularly scary? No. And that's for two reasons. One, if you need to shoot it indoors or in different lighting situations, you can use a colour filter. Again, this is just what movie professionals will talk about all day long. Use colour filter and nudge the colour spectrum one way or another. So if you shoot it indoors, I think an 80B is right for moving this film and reproducing good colours in there. And what you're doing there is you're effectively using the filter to knock the ambient temperature towards daylight, and then the film will reproduce what your eye remembers seeing. That's the first reason why it shouldn't be scary. And the second reason is because you know this now. So you know that if you shoot it in dull situation, it will be dull. Great. don't shoot it in dull lighting situations, or if you do, know that that's what you're going for. There are some people who review it say that they love shooting it in overcast situations because it gives an old spaghetti western vintage vibe. Brilliant, fantastic aesthetic, because this film is reproducing what it is seeing. But you also know that if you take it out on a bright sunny day and point it at people, landscape, animals, pets, the sky, it will show flowers, it will show you that in fantastic colour, fantastic detail, and you will be really blown away. And that's the joy of film photography, right? We are adding these films into our creative toolkit. We know what their weaknesses, we know what their strengths are. This has very clear strengths and a couple of clear weaknesses. If you're expecting to just load it, shoot it around, load some situations, and everything will be fine, you will be disappointed. But you know this now, so you won't. We mentioned earlier that this has remjet removed. So you might remember from the 800T video, we talked about this. Movie film has a layer of carbon base, basically, that is, among other things, an anti-halation layer, which means it stops the light bouncing around inside the camera and creating effect halos around bright light sources. If you remove that layer so that it can be processed in C41, you can get a bit of light bouncing around, you can get some halos around bright lights. It's very obvious in a lot of 800T photos. It is still there in 50D, but you are less likely to see it because you'll be shooting outdoors. You probably won't be pointing it towards light bulbs or light sources or petrol stations, as people often do, myself included, with 800T. So it's less likely that it will dominate a photo, but it is still there. So if you are shooting towards the sun or towards a light source or towards a bright reflection, just be aware halation will still occur with this film. Again, this might be an aesthetic you like or not. You can choose to amplify it or you can choose to reduce it in your choice of composition and light sources around. But knowing about it allows you to use it to your advantage if and how you wish. Now, one thing that I also want to point out about the colour balance, bit of a side note, but I think it's important. When we talk about the fact that 50D is less forgiving, you might say the same about 800T, and that is true. That has exactly the same level of dedication to a colour temperature. But when we look at the colour spectrum, there is a reason that daylight is right in the middle of our human light spectrum. We are evolved to historically hunt and do everything we needed to do in daylight, so our eyesight is optimized for that color temperature. So we are super sensitive to when colors are slightly wrong and when they are absolutely spot on around that daylight area. With candlelight, with indoor light, we can adapt, our brains can adapt and it's fine. Daylight, we really notice it. So again, that is a reason why when this goes well, it is absolutely mind-blowing, and when this misses the mark slightly, you are likely to pick it up quite well. Now, of course, again, people who are experts in post-production know that colour shifts can be made after, but that's not what we tend to be about. Let's get it right in camera, on the film, and if you want indoors, we can use a different film or a filter. If you've shot this before, if you've shot 800T, please let me know what you think. Do you like the halation? Do you try and avoid it, or do you try and amp it up? Again, you see the reviews, there are lots of 5 stars. There are some that are 3 and 4, as people have shot it in disappointing situations or hoped it would have greater colour flexibility than it did. Now that you know this, hopefully you'll be able to pick those days, pick those moments, pick the right camera, shoot with a wide aperture, point it at lots of lovely, vibrant, full of life things, and it will blow you away. Wonderbox subscribers in particular, let me know what you think. Does this sound intimidating to you? I really hope not, because it really shouldn't be. This is a case of choosing the film for the situation. But please do let me know what you're thinking of aiming it at in particular. Either walks, portraits, anything like that. This should deliver an absolutely beautiful set of images from a bright sunny day, of which hopefully we're going to have lots over the coming months. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you think of this film. Please let me know any questions below, and I'll see you again next week.